common mistake during pandemics. I was on mute. So hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Alexandrina Scorbureanu. I'm very privileged to be with you here today. Thanks to the World Data Summit organizers for inviting me to chair a very interesting discussion about customer analytics. I'm a senior leader holding various positions in the past 15 years in insurance, banking groups dealing with business transformation, data and analytics, and I'm really passionate about the topic. So I'm really happy to be here with you and thanks for joining us. First of all, I would really like to just point out to some very basic housekeeping rules, such as, for example, if I may ask you kindly to make your profiles visible in the app in order to allow for more networking opportunities. Secondly, don't put any effort into taking pictures or recording, because slides as well as the recording of the session will be available after the webinar. And definitely, please feel free to ask questions in your message toolbox. We will make sure to come back to you and answer as much as possible of those questions. So before I really introduce the speakers here, I would like to provide you a brief introduction about why are we here actually? Why are we still talking about customer analytics, right? I guess this is quite an important topic. If you imagine we are more connected, both as individuals as well as businesses, as well as our belongings, more connected now than ever. We produce on a daily basis something in the range of 3 exabytes of data, and all this data has a huge potential. Most of the data is to be said, so roughly 90% has been produced in the last 2 years. There's a huge growth potential in the coming years as well. So I would really like to stimulate the discussion around, given all this data which surrounds us, that is lying there, what should we do with this data? The question is how to really extract insights from data, how to do this efficiently, and with which purpose? What are the business outcomes that we should expect out of analyzing data? And to answer these challenging questions, we have some amazing speakers today which have prepared their presentations, and we really hope that you will enjoy. I'm going to introduce now briefly the agenda and the speakers so that you can organize also your timing as well as any kind of questions you might have. First of all, we have here with us Gaurav Chaparwal, which is the founder and CEO of DataHash. Hello, Gaurav, do you hear us?
Hi, Alexandrina. Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you as well.
We will then proceed with the more detailed introduction about you and what you did in the past in a couple of minutes. Secondly, we have here with us Candice Ren. Candice, she's the co-founder of 173 Tech. Candice, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hi, very good to have you here. Thank you very much. And last but not least, we have with us Kaushik Gate, which is leading the data science and analytics practice in HDFC Bank in India. Hello, Kaushik.
Good evening.
Good. Great. So we, as anticipated, we have a really interesting discussion tonight, and we have some very interesting topics to introduce. I would go and give the mic to Gaurav. He will be introducing to us the analytics topic, so giving some background concerning the definitions that we should consider when talking about this argument, and of course, giving up some successful principles, key success factors when someone should approach analytics. So Gaurav has a very interesting background, actually. So before having founded DataHash, Gaurav was leading analytics consulting, actually built up out of scratch the analytics function in Emirates Airlines, so the transportation industry, and Souk.com, which is now the Amazon of Asia. Gaurav has been working in digital analytics for more than a dozen years, so basically when this field was invented, more or less. And I also did some analytics on your profile, Gaurav, and I found out you also studied aerospace.
Yes.
Is that true? Okay.
Yes, that's true.
And people refer to him as being data guru. So I'm really welcoming Gaurav here and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Alexandrina. Thank you so much for those kind words. Um, hello everyone, and as Alexandrina mentioned, we have some very interesting topics to discuss. So please allow me to share my screen. I want to share a few. I mean, just to facilitate the conversation, really. Uh, uh, can everyone see my screen clearly?
Yes, we see
Okay.
it.
Okay. Okay, so as Alexandrina was mentioning, I come from I am in United Arab Emirates, and in this part of the world, uh, it's the oil. Most Western world thinks of this region as the oil countries or the oil nations. And when earlier this year, it was said that data is the new oil. I mean, we took it quite personally here, and we said, okay, data is the new oil, and all the big giants, Googles and the Amazons of the world are basically harnessing the new oil, or which is the customer data. And we said, okay, we need to really understand what this is all about, and why is data really the new oil? What is that customer data that everybody is harnessing and everybody wants to make generate value out of, right? So it said, okay, we have all data from customers. Now we are in a digital world, and every single touch point is captured. So, when I can know when somebody viewed a banner ad, I can know when somebody watched, downloaded my app or watched a YouTube ad, or, read a review on the site. I can know every single thing that the customer does in all the different kind of touch points that are available to me, right? So a vast majority of them being digital, I want to know it all. And suddenly you have this big data, this beautiful big data, so to say, that you want to capture, and you want to kind of think that this is the new oil. Data is the new oil. So let's jump into this new oil and extract value out of the data. And what happens when immediately, and I'm sure many of you have really tried it, and when you jump into the oil, and that's the crude oil, because the data is crude oil. When they said that data is the new oil, what they should have really said is data is the new crude oil. They didn't quite say that. Since data is the crude oil, it's important to define what data is important for you, what customer, what is, all those touch points. Not all of them may be relevant for you at a particular point in time, for sure. It's important to differentiate between what we call signal and noise. And noise in information, like some of you might be from the information background, information sciences background, where signal and noise, you want to kind of separate out the noise to make sure that you receive the signal very clearly. And the problem is when you start capturing all the data and you don't really differentiate between what data is valuable, you start losing the value out of it, right? So how do you figure out what data is really valuable? One interesting, and and I'll give you a moment to kind of read my favorite strip, Calvin and Hobbes. uh, so I, if you've gone through it, it's it's what I like to call the so what test, right? So if somebody tells you that, oh, I have this beautiful, amazing data that I have just extracted, and I have, I know all the visitors who have, liked my Facebook page. And it's like, okay, it's possible to kind of, merge this data into your big customer genome or single customer view and so on. Fancy names that people come up with, and I think that customer 360 was always a term even when I started analytics. It has been an elusive term all the time. So you can always obviously know all these things about, when a visitor liked my Facebook page, or, a visitor watched my tutorial. I think it's an important question to ask. If this data may be available, the question is, so what, right? So what do you do with these customers or visitors who have watched your tutorial? Do you have something that you can do with them? Is there something that you want to do with them? Is there a business case or business use case for these visitors, or, for you to do something with this data? And till the time you don't find a good enough answer, I would say this data is either, is noise, or at least noise at this point in time, till the time you figure out a way to extract value out of this data. So, one general principle, and, I would really like to refer it at this way. Um, Data is a part of what we call is the solution space. Data will help you answer questions. But you have to define your problem space when customer data is involved. You have to define your use cases well. What are your business use cases? What is the business value you want to derive out of your data? uh, and that's the most can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you want to define the use cases very well, and that use cases are the part what we call the problem space. So start with the use cases, and then decide, understand what data is relevant. Don't just jump into the data and just get started with it. You might still want to ask, okay, Gaurav, you mentioned all these data points. Which data points do you think are usually relevant, or for a customer 360 or a single customer view, and what should we consider as customer data in most cases? Demographic information, if you're collecting for transactions, those obviously are relevant. Transactional information is the most crucial of all your different data points that you collect. Followed by what we call the behavioral data, like your digital behavioral data, which is basically how your users who are visiting the website or visiting the app, etc., what are they doing? When I say what are they doing, which pages are they visiting, what sections, or what kind of depth of interaction do they have? Are they are they in the initial or upper funnel stages, like where they're discovering your product or your offerings, or are they engaged, and are they close to conversion, so like very close to conversion, or retargetable? um, then the next is your interactions on the customer support, and a lot of people kind of ignore this this channel specifically, because it is a disconnected old world call center or support channel where it is difficult to make sense of the data. It is a very strong indicator in many aspects, and the good part is now that you have capabilities to process speech to text and sentiment analysis on voice, etc. But even something as basic as any, like feedback in terms of how whether they have been their queries or complaints have been resolved is useful. So your call center data, very important. Another piece of data is the feedback. Again, I'm going from in the sequence of importance to an extent, so think of it as from more important to less important. In a broad sense, obviously in some cases it can be more important, like some data can be more important than the others. Understanding your customer feedback, whether it's written feedback, comments, etc., made structured in a proper structured way. Followed by campaign data, like email opens, clicks, which customers are engaging, to know what kind of campaigns should you kind of are working, or are customers interested in. Followed by social data, and social data, it's a kind of a slightly gets into a difficult territory, where what social data is relevant, because social itself has a whole lot of data by itself. So I would kind of park that topic for today. Then followed by your paid campaigns data, like impressions on a display ad or a banner ad, or on YouTube or Facebook and so on, or different sites, right? And then the last, but not, is the second party and the third party data, which is data that you can kind of, find with your partners, etc. So these are the different kinds of data. I won't really say that they are strictly organized in the sequence of, more important to less important, but broadly, you can think that if you have not resolved the first, two or three to begin with, you don't want to kind of start talking about the second party, third party, or, social integrations, etc., till the time you have resolved or created a single customer view, or, not, it's not a full 360, but I would say, start from left, left to right, and then top to bottom in that sequence. In fact, the biggest divide I've usually seen is that the transactional systems are legacy systems, and the behavioral data is in the new analytics tools and systems. So, there is a disconnect there itself, and most people kind of struggle with even resolving that. So don't spend your time trying to gather social data if you have not really fixed your transactional and behavioral data together, right? Okay. So what kind of tools you would ask, right? How do you collect all of this data? Well, the answer is pretty simple, as simple as this. So, the world of MarTech, right? I'm sure, everybody thinks, okay, you have vendors telling you and selling you that one golden solution that will convert all your marketing problems, like resolve all your marketing problems in fraction of seconds, and they will create this golden record or customer genome, and all these beautiful terms that you have heard, and send personalized campaigns, etc. The truth is, there are tools out there. There is no simple answer to it. Different companies of different sizes, between startups to SMEs to enterprises, will have different sets of requirements and different sets of tools relevant to them. So let's still, you will still, okay, no, Gaurav, you still, can you please tell us a good tool? Okay, so before I answer that question, and I let's kind of see about tools, right? How do tools really work? Okay, what's the problem here, right? It's quite simple. The answer is quite simple. This guy is using the tool wrong. Yeah, it's using the wrong tool. So, obviously the hammer is not meant to kind of cut a tree. So this guy is using a wrong tool. Okay, fair enough. Let's put the right tool give this guy the right tool, and he still is kind of using it like an X. And what's the problem here? The problem here is that the tool is right, but the guy is using it in a wrong way. Well, you know what? For me, the problem is not really with the tool here. The problem is with this guy here. And I struggle. I'm running a consulting company, and thankfully I have a business because of this. But the truth is, a vast majority of companies invest massive amount of monies in buying these tools, but forget that at the end it is the people who are, and I like to quote Avinash Kaushik, the analytics evangelist, who says 90-10 rule, where 90 is kind of the right people, and 10 is the contribution of right tools. So as long as no amount of tools can solve your problems, I think it's important that you first get the right people, and because they are way more important than the right tools or right method of using the tools, right? So I will still not answer your question about whether what is the right tool, but I would want to tell you that if you find out the right people, they will find out the right tools for you, and for your specific business, and be able to kind of build it for you. Okay, so how do we really go about activating the customer data? When I say activating, it's like, how do I kind of take this data I have, suppose, and how I know that this data exists, I want to create business value out of it. Mike, how do you really go about doing it? What is the steps, or what is the process? And as many of your companies, I'm sure you are doing these digital transformation. Had COVID not been the term of the year, I think digital transformation would have continued to be the term which kind of from last year. I mean, everybody wanted to do digital transformation. I've still not been able to completely find a single meaning. It's an ambiguous term that people use in different contexts at times. So they said, oh, we are building a massive enterprise data lake, and we are before that, sorry, we are doing data collection. We are measuring every single touch point. We are, we are putting an analytics tool for our web, collecting web stream data. We are putting tools on our call center, and we have even put beacons in our store. So if somebody walks into my retail store and uses my store Wi-Fi, I'll collect the data of which aisle they are moving in, and so on and so forth, right? And you are doing massive amount of spends on collecting the data. Yes, fair enough, do it. And then data warehouse. This is the enterprise data lake, and collecting terabytes of data, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's the next step. So by the time you get to data warehouse, you realize that the 100 tools that you have put for data collection, there is a problem with data quality out there. Many of the tools that do not have the right data, because what the data that you wanted to collect was collected at the time it was implemented, but the website changed. There was a change in the way your whatever your call center system, or the way your different touch points were really working, right? So the data collection quality kind of begins to deteriorate when you by the time you move to data warehouse. And by the time you actually build a data warehouse, like a multi-billion dollar investment into, I won't name out firms here, but tools, you said, okay, I have a data warehouse now, and then you have to get data intelligence. It was like, oh, I just collected the data. How do? So then there is a data science team, and these data scientists who are like more rarer than unicorns, I believe, in reality. But obviously everybody claims to be a data scientist on LinkedIn. So somebody who has to be able to kind of extract value out of the data warehouse. And then come the use cases that okay, in reality you kind of deliver these experiences or activations to the customer. What I would suggest, I would say, fundamentally this in an agile world, and I think IT has known this for a while, and this is the waterfall approach, if you have heard of that term in the analytics world. Of the same concept has existed in IT for a while, where the world has already moved to what we call the agile world. So you don't really kind of do a multi-year project where you spend a year collecting the data and another year doing data warehousing and so on and so forth. What you do is actually you go by use cases. You take up a use case, you find a business use case that is most valuable, or like a high return low cost kind of a balanced scenario. You pick that use case, you figure out what kind of insights you want to derive in your customer data to serve that use case, and then you make sure that whether that data is collected or not, you're just collecting a portion of the data. You're not spending like several months to years of effort collecting data or warehousing. You just make sure that you start with data collection and warehousing relevant to that particular use case, and you derive insights and you kind of fulfill that value. What happens in this scenario is that instead of when you do this use case approach, you end up delivering business value on your way, and business really appreciates it. And you get your customers continue to get value with every single, you can call it a sprint. So a sprint, you kind of pick up a use case, do a sprint, deliver it all the way from data collection to warehouse to like delivering of the use case, and then you pick up the use case too, and then you pick up the more and more use cases, and you build your pyramid kind of in this horizontal fashion rather than layering it vertically. With that, I would like to conclude the set of thoughts that I have in terms of how to build about a customer analytics capability. Yeah, thank you.
Very good, Gaurav. Thank you very much. I will keep my questions for the afterwards, because I have pointed out some very interesting ones as well. And I hope our audience will post also some of these questions. In order to, so you showed us a lot of elements which are connecting among them the topic of how do we extract information and insights from the data. Is all data relevant? Shall I start inside out my analytics experience, or the other way around? What is the best approach which will typically work. And I found out recently that it comes out actually from some of the researches that so there are three main benefits which analytics can bring to the business. So first of all, it helps accelerating innovation cycles. It helps improve efficiency of the business, and or it helps improving product and servicing of the customer. So in order to understand how this can happen also in practice, we have invited here with us Candice Ren, Candice, which will talk us through how to support business growth through modern analytics. It's my pleasure to introduce briefly Candice. So she's a co-founder of 173 Tech, an analytics agency helping companies to build modern analytics capabilities. She has previously created a division of a dating giant called Bumble and Badoo before it was sold to Blackstone, actually for a very huge, for a huge value of $3 billion in 2019. So Candice, welcome. I have a curiosity, actually. You have a very international background, so you also traveled through Australia and UK and France, China. But I didn't found using my poor business intelligence tools, where does the name or the magic number 173 come from? So why 173? Is it a magic number? I would note it down if so.
It is magic in our sense. So when we started 173 Tech, our goal is to bring speed to data. So we, set up infrastructure really quickly. We turn value for you really quickly. So the speediest thing we can think of is light. So 173 is the amount of time you can travel between the Earth and the sun in the speed of light in one day. So it's the magic number we're aiming for. So we bring you the light of speed, take you all the way to the sun.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. I didn't know that. Thanks. Okay, so I give you the mic for the presentation.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So can everyone see my screen? Oh, sorry. 1 second.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, wonderful.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. What I want to take you through is customer data and how to apply modern analytics and accelerate growth. So a little bit more about myself. So 173 Tech, which I'm a co-founder of, we are a boutique data agency. So we apply modern analytics terminologies. We help companies build the most efficient data infrastructure and analytics teams in order to unlock growth drivers. We cover the entire data pipeline from data engineering, building scalable infrastructure, ETLs, and analytics of your data insights, make sure they're timely and actionable, and all the way to data science modeling, productionizing of them. So, and previously I was the head of analytics at dating giant Bumble, which is part of the group Badoo. It was sold to Blackstone last year. And prior to that, I was part of the panel at Blue Horizon 2020 at the European Commission. Also worked in fintech and luxury brands at L'Oreal. So that's just a little bit about myself. In terms of today's topic, customer analytics, I really like what Gaurav said before about so what, the so what moment. So what's the purpose of customer analytics? How we see it, it helps companies build better products and service more people with it. And first of all is the customer behavior kind of side. So you want to understand how your customer behave and that involves both the positive and negative traits. So positively, we want to know what bring users to your product, and what make them convert. So that could be paying for a product, they could be coming back and use it more, they could be referring their friends. Also from a negative perspective, what make them churn, what prompt them to complain about a certain part of your product. And once you have those customer insights, you want to use that to guide your product development. So the usual process you have is having the insights, and then you come up with a hypothesis and a few ideas and implement them in a experimental kind of way. So you have control and test groups. You then gather some statistics, find out the winning variant, and productionize your idea, your winning idea. And then from there on, you want to monitor your release, and then you go back to the same cycle again. More insights, more ideas, more continuous improvement of your product. And now you have a amazing product. You know who your ideal customers are, their segments, and now you'll be able to tailor your marketing and acquisition strategies to bring in more customers that you can service with your amazing product. So I hope that's a bit of a peek into the cycle of growth. So it's not a one-directional approach. Your cycle should be serving back to itself. And we like to break it down into 4 components, starting from customer acquisition, activating your users, making sure they're engaged within your product, retained, coming back to your product, and then servicing back into your acquisition strategy. In the next steps, we'll look into each step of this user journey, what data can be collected and what data project you can do in order to accelerate this growth. So first of all, customer acquisition. For the purpose of this talk, we will concentrate on online digital effort. If you have offline campaigns, marketing budgets, there are also ways you can evaluate the effect and how to optimize it with data. If you're interested, please ping me after. I'm very happy to talk to you about that as well. But for the purpose of this slide, we'll concentrate on digital marketing. So the secret weapon to winning this bidding war online is actually your own data. So what you want to do, start by centralizing your marketing campaign data. So very likely you'll be advertising on many different platforms. That could be Facebook, Google, Snapchat, or Twitter, LinkedIn. So what you want to do first is to automate the data extraction and the reason you want to do that is to deduplicate your attributions. These platforms tend to be quite greedy in a way. So, if I see a Facebook ad and then I go to, search the product on Google, then click on a Google ad, then very likely they both will claim you as a conversion. So by deduplicating your attribution, you avoid underestimating your cost per acquisition. The other benefit of centralizing your data is also now you can align all your channels and evaluate their performance like for like. And from there on, you can start looking at alerts on campaign optimization recommendations and help your marketing team perform efficiently and in an easy way. The next thing, very importantly, is the metric you choose to optimize your campaign. So many companies might choose to do cost per impressions, cost per download, for example, cost per purchase. But ideally, what you want to do is to optimize towards the lifetime value of a user. So if I download an app today, so let's say Headspace, what am I worth to Headspace, basically? So it's not a download. A download is not a value. So you want to know, I subscribe, so for example, £10 a month, but you also relating to how long I will stay on the app. So this is where you want to have a better measure than just download, because there's so many conversion points afterwards to a long-term user. So what can you do? One of the suggestions we always have is to target lower funnel conversions. So for example, instead of app download, look towards first registration, and you can go a bit further on. So that could be subscribing to the product or coming back a month later. But the challenge with long-term value, the LTV, is you can't wait for the customer's lifetime to send this back to Facebook. That's just not ideal, is way too long, impossible. So what do you want to do is to predict that. So that's where your historical data come into play. So historical data will help you, build a prediction model. So previously we have done LTV models based on the first hour of users' activity within the app. Then you can predict a value and have that sent back to your marketing platform for an early signal. So you can optimize your creatives, your campaigns, your targeting as quickly as you can. And also combining that with your spend data, you can have a long-term ROI calculations per campaign, again, helping you optimize your marketing efforts to the max. So once you have users acquired, now you want to activate them. So activation here, by that I mean turning them into a real user. So that could be registering to, becoming registered users, or starting a trial, or becoming a true subscription user. So some of the key things you can do here, first of all, is event analytics. So that's about tracking the user flows, your user actions. So that includes viewing a page, clicking on a button. And what it will help you is identify how they navigate your product. And from here, you can look at different pain points where people drop off, where people get stuck if they're going back and forth a lot, if they are just leaving your app completely, or if there is a complaint button they can click. So once you identify these pain points, then you want to start thinking about different ideas to solve these problems and to help them travel all the way to the other side of the funnel. So here it's really important to embrace a experimentation culture. So you want to experiment your effort. So that involves A/B testing. And so with A/B tests, especially when you're doing a lot of different tests, you would want to have your test result first centralized. You want statistically robust results, having a set of test KPIs and also counter metrics, and make sure these results are easily accessible to all your teams. Once users are activated, you want to start monitoring their engagement levels. So what is a good engagement level? So I want to introduce a concept here called aha moment. So I think Facebook is probably the pioneer in this concept. Aha moment is basically the ding, the light bulb moment when you realize why you need this product, why this will benefit your life. And from that moment, you become loyal, become sticky, you'll keep coming back, you will introduce your friends to this service. But how do you find this aha moment? One of the ways we found really helpful is to first find your power user. So the power user are someone who are very addicted to your product. They come back a lot, they use it very frequently. There's a chart at the bottom, so that will plot it out the number of active days a user been using your product in a month. So it's a distribution. So the people on the right, that's the people who are coming back to your app almost daily. So those, you can identify them as your power user. Once you have identified them, what you can do is start looking at their behavior patterns and what correlates to the most to being a power user. And once you've seen that, so we all know correlation doesn't necessarily translate to causation. So what you can do is test for causal impact. And once you know what actually drives them, what is that aha moment? So Facebook decided very earlier on, having 7 friends into the app will make you a very sticky and loyal customer. So that will become your North Star metric. So instead of looking at user acquisitions, you want to look at the acquired users who had 7 connections within, say, the first week. And all your efforts will be optimizing towards that aha moment. Another very important thing when it comes to user engagement is customers are not alike. And as consumers, we like personalized offers, we like personalized product, we like personalized communications. So how do you do that at scale if you have, millions or hundreds of millions of users? So this is where segmentations can really help you. You can segment your users based on many different attributes. So from a demographic point of view, you have, the very standard country, location, age group, gender, but you can take it further. You can do psychographics. So that involves the person, who they are, the important traits of them. So are they eco-friendly? Are they, what USP they're seeking from your product? So you might have different value propositions, and they might be associating themselves to one of them. For example, if you're an online e-commerce company, they might like you because you have the best price promise. So you can label them as a value seeker, for example. The other thing, from a behavior point of view, this is within your app behaviors. So that could be they're a subscriber, they're high spenders, they tend to use your app on a weekend, or they use your app on all devices across mobile, web, or PlayStations, as you name it. And once you have segmented your user, you can then start mix and match different traits and tailor your message to them. So the next step, when you have user engaged, you want to make sure they are retained and they don't leave you, basically. So when it comes to retention, let's first look at how to monitor and track retention. So we've all seen the chart on the bottom right here. So that's a retention cohort. To produce a retention cohort, there's a few elements to think about. First of all is defining what is a retained user. And that, what you want to avoid is vanity metrics here. Lots of people, you can start with active users, absolutely no problem at all, but you can take it a step further. The problem with active users is there are many reasons people become active. For example, if you have a very aggressive CRM campaign, so a proportion of the user will be clicking on it and become active in your app, but they will quickly disappear. They won't do any meaningful actions. They won't perform anything you want them to do. So the next thing you can define is a key action user. For example, if you're a dating app, you can say anyone who had a match or anyone who had sent a message to someone. And taking it even a step further is a threshold user. So that could be someone who has performed certain amount of activities within your product. So in Facebook's case, that could be having 7 connections, for example, or adding 3 connections in a week. So once you have your retained user definition, you want to think about your retention window. So that's relating to the pattern of usage in your product. So that could be daily, weekly, or monthly, depending on your offering. So once you have that, you can start plotting the heat map we're seeing here. So you have the registration cohort going down one side and the retention window going the other. So with retention, so apart from monitoring, the other thing quite important is prediction. So churn propensity scores, what you want to do is knowing before people churn, you get a red flag, so you can do something about that. So to close the growth loop, so the 4 steps we talked about, but the real power is really mixing and matching your data science projects. So one of the example, for example, is the churn prediction we just talked about. You can combine that with your customer segments to produce a very tailored CRM approach. For example, if you have someone being flagged as very likely to churn, So what you could do there is to then combine with the user segmentation to tailor the offering there. So if they are a value seeker, we talked about before, so what you could do there is to send them a tailored message to say, to remind them your best price guaranteeing, for example. And the next really successful project we see a lot in companies is to service towards audience selection. So we talked about LTV predictions before. So you can have your high LTV users as an audience and use that as a lookalike approach to Facebook, for example. And you can further segment your high LTV users into different USB segmentations. For example, you can have a high LTV value seeker segment, and then you can tailor your creatives accordingly. So we talked about a few data projects. So how do you actually do this? Gaurav said before, the map of many different tools. So we like to simplify things, and the way we do it is to have a data warehouse centralized in your modern analytics infrastructure. So from that data warehouse, there's a few options there. It's not limiting to these four, but Snowflake, Amazon Redshift, Google BigQuery, those are some of the options out there. You can obviously look a bit further, but centered around your data warehouse, we like to see it as different layers surrounding them. So first of all, we have the extraction layer. So this is where all your data sources are being delivered into your data warehouse. So here you have your server-side data, your app data, your website analytics, and you have your CRM data. So we heard before from your customer service, people's complaints, people's reviews, and then you have your digital marketing sources for spend data from different channels, and you might have other sources or third parties, we also mentioned before. And then once those data are funneled into your data warehouse, automated at your desired time interval, you have your modeling layer. So this is where you implement your own business logics. So here we always recommend having a data dictionary. So you have that will facilitate a very good conversation within your company. You have the same vocabulary going together with everyone. So here, from that data dictionary, you have a business translation and you have a technical translation. So that technical translation will be modeled into your data warehouse. And from there on, a reporting layer. So there is your visualizations. So that helps you, your team to get insights quickly. So those are automated dashboards, refresh daily, for example. So people can come in every day, spend 5 minutes of their, the first thing in the morning, identify any issues they need to look into, any opportunities they can scale. And next thing, so from your automated dashboard, you might have a bit further questions. For example, if something happened, why? This is where your analysis layer comes into play. So that is likely to be SQL queries into your data warehouse and then processed with Python scripts. And this is also where you can do your MVP data science modelings. And once you have built that, you can then productionize it in your data science layer. So that's how we tend to construct this modern analytics infrastructure. So one of the key challenges when we're helping companies build this infrastructure is we're seeing a lack of tools specifically when it comes to data processing and modeling. So for this reason, we have built our own open source tool called Sayan. Please feel free to have a look after the conference. And if you have any questions, let me know. So Sayan is built with simplicity in mind. So to make your team, to make this data model really easy to create, scale, and maintain. And it supports both SQL and Python scripts. And you also allow all your analytics codes to be centralized. So your life will be a lot easier. You can visualize all the dependencies throughout your whole analytics process. So that's my talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Candice. Thank you very much. Really true deep dive into the digital marketing, e-commerce world, and how to do analytics to support business growth using these channels. I agree. For me, it was really insightful. Thank you for this. Before we move to the next presentation, I wanted to because that's what I felt that is important to also consider technology, which is enabling actually all this analytics, customer analytics journey. And the more we will see technology developing, especially with the acceleration of the pandemics right now, I guess we will see even more in the future from that green field. And I would really like to cite here a prediction out of Gartner for 2020, which said data and analytics combined with artificial intelligence technologies will be paramount in the effort to predict, prepare, and respond in a proactive and accelerated manner to a global crisis and its aftermath. I guess it's important not to forget that we are all into this pandemics scenario still, and from some of the businesses, this translated into an acceleration of the digital channels, accelerating the way of working remotely, and so on and so forth. But let's say the applications of AI are still unknown in many fields. However, we have here with us today Kaushik Gate from HDFC Bank, which will precisely introduce to us into a sophisticated modeling to support the, actually maybe it's one of the most sophisticated areas of applications of AI into the financial sector, which is the recommender system for financial products. So Kaushik, welcome. Kaushik, you're Senior Vice President and Head of Consumer Analytics and Data Science at HDFC Bank in India. And I also discovered pleasantly that HDFC Bank in India won in the last few years more than 10 awards for outstanding work in data science. Was it you? By the way, one of the projects, even the last year, the best data science project award. So welcome, Kaushik, and I can't wait for your presentation.
Thanks, Alexandrina. I will just share my screen. Give me a moment. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
definitely. Yes.
Oh, great, great. So, good evening, everyone. And as Alexandrina said, I will be talking about a recommendation system for financial products that we have developed. It's a use case or a case study that brings to life the principles that we heard in the previous two presentations. And you may ask, why is it noteworthy? Well, because first of all, it's a sweet fruit of labor that saw multiple attempts over 3 years. Secondly, when we talk of recommender systems, what normally comes to mind are the recommendation systems that are used in e-commerce, retail, OTT. But financial products are very different. Not that many SKUs, and those are high involvement products, longer purchase cycles, and they are not impulse. You don't wake up every day and decide to buy a new car or take a personal loan or open a savings account, right? So the typical recommendation system approach doesn't work for financial products. So that's why we are quite happy with the engine that we have developed. We'll go through that now. Let's get started. One sec. Yeah. So a bit about us. We are a 25-year-old Indian bank with a stellar track record of excellence in all the businesses that we operate in, and known for our robust business processes and a customer base of nearly 50 million. Those who are based out of India would definitely have heard of HDFC Bank. We also have a strong data science team that is 35 members. Our practice is nearly 15 years old. It's an in-house team that supports various businesses, retail business of the bank with data-led solutions. And the work that we have done over the years has been recognized in the analytics community, like you mentioned, Alexandrina. So it's the team that does the work. Yeah, I'm just the face of the team. And we operate in three key business segments, wholesale, treasury, and retail. Some of the highlights of the awards mentioned on the slide, I won't go through it. Moving on. So I will share the context. See, our direct marketing efforts are based on several high-performing product propensity models, and we have 30 plus retail financial products and services across these need dimensions: pay, save, invest, borrow, insure, and shop. And for each of these product and service, we have a machine learning model that identifies the likelihood of customers to take those products and services. I'm sure all of you would be aware of what a machine learning model is. So what was the challenge we were facing? It was about how to arbitrate between product propensities and arrive at a rank ordering. So while the propensity based approach is always better than a random approach, we didn't have a handle on what comes first, what comes next within the high propensity bucket. For example, if a customer appears in a high propensity bucket for 3 products, what to talk to her about first? Other challenge was incorporating the footprint customer was leaving as part of various other interactions, on our digital properties, the website, or conversations with the relationship manager, or his response to our email, SMS campaigns, etc. These feedback and footprints were great signals, but how to synchronize these signals with those in the transaction data is the challenge we are trying to address. Like I mentioned, there were multiple attempts to achieve the holy grail. Now, why I'm calling it a holy grail? Because it takes customer centricity up by several notches. It breaks down the many data silos. It closes the feedback loop. It takes into account the signals from other interactions. It rank orders the recommendations, and it does away with the need or with the siloed communication to the customer. If he is in high propensity for say personal loan, he will get communicated separately for personal loan. If he's in high propensity for an insurance product, he will again receive a communication for that. So a customer ends up receiving more than necessary communication. So this addresses that. And other challenges where it was a black box solutions. We didn't want that. We wanted an explainable solutions that people would find it easy to understand. And in our earlier attempts, what we found was a product bias. Products which are typically high uptake products or high conversion, they typically get a higher representation in the recommendations, which is not the way it should be. So the solution, which is our NBA engine, there are 3 building blocks or components of this engine: the arbitration layer to orchestrate between various signals, feedback loop to take into account his or her interactions with our communications, and interpretable recommendations that the frontline can easily use. We'll go through each of these one by one. The arbitration logic is the core of the NBA. So it's a scalable generalized solution approach, generalizable enough to work across all combinations. We wanted the engine to be very flexible. We have multiple products and customer segments. In a bank, you have a savings account, you have a current account, you have a salaried segment. Then in product, you have premium and non-premium. You have loan products, you have deposit products, you have insurance, you have advisory, so on and so forth. And we wanted the engine to be able to scale up and down with modifications in the product segment and offer construct, because it's possible that 1 month you have a certain offer for product A, whereas the next month that offer goes away, something new comes in. One customer segment changes, you move to a next one, a new product is introduced. So we wanted the engine to be able to take care of all that. And we also wanted to build something which is interpretable and explainable. The real intent. This is one of the big shifts in this approach over others, bringing all interaction and feedback data together to identify the customer needs. We already had propensity scores and behavioral context, uh, which we captured, and we captured intent in the other sources, CRM, website, campaigns, all of which were very strong signals in themselves, and when combined together, helped us arrive at the final order of the intent. And this final recommendations or final rank ordering that we arrived at, it was fed into various channels. One is the frontline at the branches, even the telecalling channel, even the paid media, as well as email and SMS campaigns. To make use of this, we made the recommendations interpretable to frontline. This is where the prescriptive analytics comes in. Once we had the recommendations, the next step was to make them more interpretable to the frontline. For this, we developed narratives that can be used by the frontline to effectively engage with the customer. The narratives were based on this BCR framework: behavior, causation, intervention. So customer shows a kind of a behavior. You identify what causes that behavior, and in the context of that cause, what is the most relevant intervention that can be taken. That's how we went about developing those narratives. So it basically gives a rationale for the recommendation and what the frontline or the relationship manager should talk to the customer about. If it's about a loan product, the narrative will talk about his response on loan campaigns, past campaigns, interest shown on website, whether he has visited any pages related to loans, certain transaction in his account that indicate a credit need, his loan holding with the competition, which is available from bureau data. So all of this feeds into development of those narratives. So this is also what prescriptive analytics is all about, giving a prescription to make it happen. This is more on the operational aspects of the model. It is an ecosystem in itself. We plan to make it fully self-sustaining and more frequent. Currently, it runs on a monthly cycle. But if you see that one cycle today takes 10 days to run. And if you have to run this weekly in the current setup, it is clearly not possible. We need to make it more efficient in a way, either by using better hardware, going on cloud, so that we are able to run it more frequently. Now comes the impact part. Yeah, we have seen a significant impact in the reduction in the base size that we are targeting, as well as improvement in conversion rates. So we went live with this a few months back, and the impact has been phenomenal. Contacts have been reduced by over 30% without any drop in absolute conversions. And absolute conversions are only going to increase as this scales. We want to make it also self-sustaining and self-learning. And it's a virtuous loop. Due to AI, performance will automatically improve further as the feedback loop improves. Is the feedback from the front line. People on the ground are quite excited about this, and as you can see from the results and feedback, 91% of all leads generated were from products featuring in the top 3 recommendations, and the 8x lift in the actual conversions among the leads generated on the ground. Also, some of the feedback from customers and branch banking, how they are finding it easy to interact with the customers, how customers are benefiting from relevance of recommendations. So this is on what has happened on the ground. Even on the direct marketing channels like email and SMS, we have seen a huge reduction in the contact base, which directly impacts the cost. Yeah? So there have been multiple benefits of this NBA, and we hope to make this even better as we go forward. So that's it from my side. That was a use case which I hope you found it useful. That's it. Thanks, Alexandrina. That's it from my side.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kaushik. I think it was a very insightful presentation. Definitely a deep dive and a demonstration of the fact that data can effectively beat emotions. So in the sense that using data, you can really bring up powerful results which have a valuable and quantified outcome for the business. And talking about that, I guess business requirements become more and more exigent as we go further, and technology should keep up the pace with these requirements. And on the other hand side, business has to decide whether or not black box solution would do better or worse compared to an in-house developed or even an open source based solution for the purpose that they define to be useful, let's say, for reaching the goals of a specific business. So we are, I'm now kindly inviting you to the wrap-up session. So we have discussed during the presentations, which I preferred not to interrupt there. In the meanwhile, we had received already a few questions which we will be answering in minutes. Just to recap a bit on our discussion earlier, so Gaurav introduced us to the customer data and how to distinguish between signal and noise, how to navigate through the oil of data, what is relevant, what is not, and how should we approach the analytics from all points of view. Candice talked us through the acceleration which data can bring as to support the business growth. And she talked very nicely about experimentation there and how to optimize a strategy of marketing through digital channels, but not only. So what kind of data science projects could be envisaged in each and every step across the value chain. And finally, last but not least, Kaushik has introduced a very sophisticated recommender system for financial products, which explained in plain words, let's say, demonstrated how business efficiency increased and the final outcome has really delivered the value both to the customer as well as to the bank, so to the business as well. So we have really touched with our hands how data can beat emotions in this case. So by having a recommender system which plays like that is really insightful. I would now really open the debate and give some space to the questions. But first, before we start into this, just to warm up the session here, I would really like to address a question to all of you guys, and talking about doing analytics, because we have different backgrounds, right? So who's coming from the financial sector, who's coming from the e-commerce, who did some transportation industry, plus we have a very diverse audience here with participants coming from the banking and financial sector, as well as retail, oil and gas, tech companies, manufacturing, education, aviation, hospitality, and so on. So do you think this is a matter of industry? So are there any sectors more advanced than others in implementing analytics and let's say developing their data-driven approach, or is it a field for all? So giving access to everyone who wants to join. I will start from Gaurav, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So Alexandrina, that's, I think, while if you look at the past, there are certain industries that have taken a lead in terms of being, driving the customer analytics agenda. Online retail comes to mind, travel retail comes to mind.
Gaurav, we don't see you. We hear you.
Oh, sorry.
But, maybe the videos.
Yeah. So online, travel and retail are some of the industries that started, first with pushing the boundaries on customer analytics. But that being said, specifically, the traditional industries, in fact, looking at what Kaushik has been able to achieve, in a banking environment where restrictions are very, the data restrictions are very, harsh, and there is a lot of control about where data can go or cannot go, etc. All industries are catching up. It's not a domain that has been restricted to the digital native domains, but we have clients, we have in this region we have a telco client who's like a giant in the region. There's another banking. I mean, you would imagine, you would think of these companies as more less tech savvy, and somebody like industries that are yet to catch up. But I think from a relevance perspective, there is not a single industry anymore that we do not see using or getting a benefit from customer analytics in any.
Fair enough. Thank you. Candice?
I definitely agree. Lots of industries, they're catching up, but we do see probably consumer apps are probably the pioneers in this industry. I guess it makes more sense. They are coming from an innovative point of view in disrupting the industry, so it comes naturally. And also the volume, they tend to have millions, if not tens and hundreds, and in Facebook's case, billions of users. So it makes sense to lead the way in making the most out of the data. But absolutely, other industries doing some really amazing works in banking, fintech, e-commerce we're seeing lately. So
Thank you. Finally, Kaushik, what do you think?
Yes. Yes. So, Alexander, it's like you said those three benefits of analytics, improving customer service and efficiency, doing better innovation, improving business efficiency. So, if you have those objectives in sight, then it doesn't really matter which sector or which industry you are in. To that extent, I'm not sure it makes sense to compare those sectors, because in each sector, even with limited data that you have, if you have these objectives in mind, you'll be able to develop a use case. You will be able to achieve significant gains with whatever data you have. So that's
Wonderful.
what I feel.
So if it's not a matter of industry, then let's see, is it a matter of skills or company functions? For example, we even have a question here. Talking on pyramids and segments, what is the correct expert role? Who can define the best user cases? And I would add to that, is it marketing function that should lead analytics? Is it audit? Is it someone else, I mean, in the company, how we should structure, especially for those companies which start right now their journey towards customer analytics? What do you think, Gaurav?
Yeah, I think that's a very classic debate about who really owns, and everybody likes to kind of take ownership of the data, and because it's the new and happening function or department within a company. And actually it leads to a lot of political wars as well within companies. The way I would I've seen it work, or the places where I've seen it really work well, is where there are two things. One, there is what I call a cross-functional team. You cannot just park it to just a single department, say, oh, marketing leads the way, or you can't just say IT owns analytics, or you create a separate department called MIS, or analytics function, or digital transformation department, or whatever, right? So basically what really works is a cross-functional team. Each of the business units have to participate and contribute, and create these cross-functional teams around use cases where, say for example, you have marketing use cases, you have experience use cases, and you create these cross-functional teams which include business people, IT people, analysts, data scientists, data engineers, and you put them together to achieve a certain business objective. Now that's where I think I've seen companies really do wonders. Whenever it has been in a silo, you leave it to one department and other department does not really contribute to it. It fails for one reason or the other. Either it will not have a good technology support if a business function owns it. If technology owns it, they will keep building massive systems without any direction of how to get value out of those from business perspective.
In fact, what I also noticed during my past experience is that you should typically avoid internal competition, and it's very hard to define a sponsor for those projects. So typically you have 2 or more sponsors, meaning that it's not sponsored by anyone, actually, the project. So it's quite difficult to define an ownership here. What do you think, Kaushik? How is it structured in your bank?
What
Are
Gaurav
you
said,
the god of data science in HDFC, or are there any other
so we
departments?
have the skills, we have the people, and we have the tools. But I would agree with Gaurav completely. It has to be a collaborative approach. I mean, there can't be one single owner for it, and people across functions have to take ownership, in spirit, not just be part of the meetings and send approvals on mails or give feedback on mail, but they have to be equally involved, skin in the game type. That is when it really succeeds, and when it is there, I mean, nothing can beat that success. I mean, it's amazing, and that is what we have been doing. Agile teams we are forming across various functions, and the
Yeah.
team owns it, and the team takes the decision on the spot. That is how we progress.
Yes, thank you. And talking about skills and tasks that these people have to perform in order to come out with meaningful results. Here we are talking also about new skills, like starting to analyze text data or unstructured data like videos, chat, or features of a mobile app, and how customers react to those features, social media listening and reacting, doing event analytics like Candice mentioned earlier. What do you think, Candice, here? How to best combine these analytics tools, or how to, given that definitely our legacy systems would have some limits in analyzing that kind of data. So is it more recommended to go for a parallel approach, or, have a data warehouse or database in which you also do some text analytics, or stuff like that? I mean, I'm trying to imagine different scenarios here. Could you please help?
Absolutely. So event analytics has 2 parts. One is the collection side. So that's the data streaming in. So that has actually no difference from numerical data. So, how much people buy, tax they left. So they are essentially the same incoming data. So once they arrive in your data warehouse or your data lake, you process them slightly differently. So with numericals, you can do, aggregations. The modeling is slightly simpler. With text data, you will need to have Python scripting. So you will need to, you're cleaning your data. That involves quite a few different steps. We actually had a previous webinar with World Data Summit on NLP specifically, where we talked about different open source packages you can use. But the idea there is to then cleanse your data, merge them with different sources within your data warehouse, and essentially visualize them the same way as numerical data.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's very interesting. I would actually pick up a question which arrived while you presented, which is referred more to the approach of customer behavior tracing to predict customer decision related to tracing customer profiles and then predict their preference basket or products or services. I would ask this question to you, Candice, but also to Kaushik. Maybe we find out something interesting here.
Yeah, sure. It's a very good question. So with behavior data, you can predict anything you want, basically. You can predict what they are likely to buy, whether they're likely to buy. I tend to see it as a sequence. So depending on what you want to do, if you want to bring people back to buy something again, so first you want to make sure they have the intent. So you want to predict, the likelihood of them repurchasing. And once you do know so if you have a propensity score, say if it's over 0.7, the score, then they are likely to buy. And then next you think about what they are most likely to buy. So that relating to recommender systems, for example. So that's a different algorithm you build. You look at, what they bought before, what people build or what people bought similar things would buy, or subsequently buy. So they are layers of data science models. We don't have, you probably wouldn't build one thing that take care of everything. So you layer them and stack them up.
Very interesting. Kaushik, how would you approach this?
I would go with what Candice said. There can't be one answer to that. It would depend on what is the use case, which industry, what kind of products, what kind of data do we have for these customers, and that's how we'll take a decision on whether to go route 1 or route 2.
Okay, very interesting. I took some notes while you were presenting, and because I tried to understand which solution would do best. So if we have to compare between black box, so to speak, type of solutions and say in-house build type of solutions. And in my mind, but please confirm if this hypothesis is true or not, in my mind, black box solutions would be inappropriate in a case where you go from understanding customer behavior, try to decline a causation of this behavior, and then describe an intervention. So have actionable insights, which you can then deliver to your front office. So I guess the issue, oh, there's an echo, sorry, in the background. So I guess the issue is the most difficult part of the analysis is to actually decline the causation part, which typically you cannot infer from a black box solution. Is that true, false, Kaushik? What is your view?
Yes. Black box are generally not easy to accept. In general, people don't want to rely on things that they don't understand. Not only about black box algorithms and all dimensions of our interactions. It's true.
Yeah,
If you don't
think about.
you don't rely on it. We tend not to rely on it. So even here,
I'm terrified about the autonomous driving. Terrified about that, because if you don't know how it works, how you can rely on it somehow, right?
Yes. So definitely, black box is not preferable. Because there are multiple stakeholders. In a large organization like ours, we have to talk to people across product teams and channels, and maybe customer service. And if you have to explain, it can't be a black box. So we would like it to be not a black box solution. It should be flexible, easy to explain.
I would like to, I would like to qualify that a little more. It's interesting because, this often comes as a resistance in terms of when you are building some, advanced solutions, like, what sometimes even, what might be a black box might be an understandable solution for a data scientist. I mean, becomes a black box simply out of its complexity for some of the users. Like, if you go to a business user and tell them that, oh, this recommender system uses, what do you call, context vector matching or support vector, or
Machine.
And they're completely lost. Now, you might understand as soon as you tell, Kaushik that we are using support vector machines, he's like, yeah, that makes so much sense. But you tell it to, a business person, and it's a black box. The truth is, and Alexandrina, you mentioned that you wouldn't want to sit in a autonomous driving car. And I come from Emirates Airlines, and I'm an aerospace engineer. the truth is the pilot does not really fly the plane, if you ask me.
I saw some very worry videos even from some air flight registrations. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not the truth is at least 80 to 90% of the time it is on autopilot, and the plane, there are algorithms which are flying the plane. I think the difference is this: is your algorithm producing reliable results? If it is black box, but you have tested, proven reliable results, uh, people will have to accept it sooner or later. It's only a matter of time. However, initially, if you are building it, you have to get buy-ins. If you do not have either like a top-down mandate available, you have to get buy-ins of people. You will have to give them, and you'll have to build it in a way where people are able to understand and accept. But yeah, so say for example, as Kaushik's algorithm now begins to work, after a couple of months possibly, all these frontline staff people will stop asking, why is this working the way it is working? They know that they are getting a good recommendation. Why even question it, right? So I would slightly disagree with that answer, but I think I understand where Kaushik is coming from, that to get even the first acceptance, it takes a lot of effort to explain them initially.
Sure, because
And
without evidence, you're just another guy with an opinion, right?
Yes.
So you need to have some data to support, and preferably evidence to illustrate that numbers hold some
yeah, and
hypotheses.
I would be much more comfortable if there was a human in the loop somewhere keeping a watch. I wouldn't be comfortable flying in a plane where there is no pilot. Doesn't matter the plane is on autopilot, but I'm happy that there is somebody in the cockpit at controls.
Yes, definitely. I will pick up another question which came out on the platform. And by the way, we are entering the last 20 minutes, so please submit your questions in case you have any other left. We still have a couple of questions to go through. But one of the questions which I think very nicely relates to this discussion here is that how important and what are typically the accuracy rates for the projects of advanced analytics and data science? So what is acceptable and what is not in terms of accuracy rate? Let's say it's quite a generic question, but let's try to put some hypotheses there. Is it 50-50? I would say 50% it's gambling, it's not data science. Is it a bit higher than that? So what is the acceptance rate for the accuracy of our predictions? What would you recommend?
So let me take that, if I may take that. I would make it very specific. In our modeling that we do, mostly we use logistic regression, and accuracy is not something we go by. Even with the 99% accuracy of the model, it may not be a good model. So we look at precision and recall, and precision, how better it is than business as usual, and recall is what is the efficiency of the model. So those are the metrics we use. So accuracy is not really a good metric according to me to determine if that's a good model or not.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to add a small point here. Also, when you're looking at, if at all you are looking at accuracy for a reason, there is what we call the type 1 error and the type 2 error. You have to understand when you are when you are predicting, identifying a customer as, making a prediction, a correct prediction about, excluding a customer in a segment when the customer does not really belong there, or not including a customer in a segment where he or she actually belongs, depends on which is more expensive. There is it is not symmetrical. Not all decisions are equal. So if there is a one type of error is more expensive, or more risky than the other, then you would want to kind of gravitate towards one or the other depending on that. So just in case you are taking like really big decisions, that you are deciding to change your website's complete layout, etc., on basis of a A/B test, etc., I mean, then you want to have a certainly high level of accuracy in terms of statistical significance of your A/B test result, etc. But if it is like a small minor decision, you can live with a certain lower level of accuracy.
Yeah.
Great.
I would completely agree with both answers. That it really depending on the use case, depending on what you're using it for. Accuracy in itself, there is no magic number to say you need 99% or 80% or 50. Like, you know, we talked about having a person flying the plane while on autopilot. It's the same. If your model is about automating something, and you have if you have a precision of 50%, and anything below that you funnel it to a person. So that's another approach. You have a model and a person taking care of one task. So if your model can, you know, save you 80% of the time with 50% accuracy, that's absolutely good enough. But you know, if we're talking about a medical trial, you know, when the danger is life or death, that's a very different ballpark again. So really depending on the use case. And also the effort as well to have another 1% of incremental gain, how much effort you need to invest in. So that's another consideration as well.
Mm-hmm. Right, and going back to the data sources, let's say, and the availability of information that lies around us, would you feel there are some unexplored fields in terms of analytics? Or I mean, just to put some examples, I've heard about a lot, and it's a topic cross industry and everyone is interested, and it also is not new, but it's now being improved and enhanced continuously, is CRM systems, really. So advanced analytics to produce what is needed in order to understand customer relationship better, and to let's say improve the advice that is given to the customer and so on. But I've also heard applications, very interesting applications of analytics on for example, process automation, or rerouting emails in order to improve business efficiency. Are there any use cases that come to your mind where you would say, oh, in this case here, I see an important potential, however, there's not too much yet explored, or you know, it's really, I have a feeling, if I may put a suggestion there, that the IoT world is something which is completely new for us. Just in Europe recently, it was issued first regulation on the security related to sensors data, so how to store and how to process data on the sensors, because this was a really greenfield until very recently. But this is just my impression. I mean, I would like to hear from you what is your feeling in terms of unexplored areas where more can be done in order to achieve business goals. Candice, do you have an answer ready? I see you smile. Okay, Kaushik.
Yeah. So yeah, I would like to talk about two dimensions of growth. One is growth potential for analytics as a discipline, or it can also be called maturity of analytics. And second part is the growth potential for business as a result of the improved analytics value chain. And as far as analytics maturity is concerned, one thing that comes to mind is bringing analytics to the data. So conventionally, what happens is we bring data to analytics. There is an analytics sandbox. There's a data warehouse. You pull data from that, push it into analytics sandbox, generate output, push it out again to the consuming channels. That is the way it conventionally happens. But I think potential is where you bring analytics to the data. And that's where what you mentioned about IoT, that's what is happening. In the sensors itself, analytics is embedded. And as the data is generated, you run analytics on it, and you take whatever decisions you want to take. So yes, that is an area of growth. On the second part, how business can benefit, one unexplored area, I believe, is the input to analytics. While we talk about what is the outcome from analytics. The input largely gets ignored, which is, there are a lot of processes still manual. There is a lot of issues in the data qualities. So if those two things are taken care of, I'm sure there's a lot of efficiency gains to be had. People still spend 70% of time of an analytics project in data gathering, manipulation, cleaning, and all. So if somehow we can crush that, the use efficiency gain. And same thing, those processes which are currently manual, if they can be automated, and again, there are a lot of efficiency gains to be had.
Yes, definitely.
There's another area that has started picking up quite recently is analytics on relatively sparse data. I think one of the struggles that a lot of data scientists and analysts have is that, there is a need for this massive volume of data, and everything is at when you start reaching those kind of scales, processing becomes a concern, etc. With privacy kind of also coming into the picture, and limitations around, okay, what third party cookies not being allowed, IDFA, GDPR related concerns, etc. Is it possible for businesses to make meaningful decisions or interpretations and insights out of relatively sparse data? I think some of the tools that we work with, we have started seeing them making a transition towards being able to use sparse data for insights generation as well. Relatively, again, as you said, greenfield, very new. I mean, there are in niches, of course, people have been working on these, but I think in commercial tools or enterprise, products which are like not academic, but used by the industry as a common practice, I think it's yet to arrive.
One thing I would add is text data again. I love that topic. It's something we don't do enough. Numerical data, I think we've cracked that game. We've been doing that for decades. Text data, the thing with numerical data is it tells you what happens. It doesn't tell you why something happens. And this is where, qualitative data will be really helpful. And we have so much text data out there, and people complain about something, people write you an email, people send you a review. Those things are largely ignored. I guess company will look at the average, score they have, like 4.6 out of 5, but the question, the insights a lot more than that. There will be a group of people leaving 1 star, why? People loving you for 5 stars, why? If you know that, it will help you improve your product really quickly, and solve your problems really quickly. So that's one area you'd be great if people put more effort in.
Absolutely. And linked to this, it comes to my mind also that some tools or capabilities or even capacity brought up by this volume explosion has to somehow upgrade, right? So what would be the trends for the technological improvements that you would see for the near future? I have just noted a few, just taking some ideas from your presentation. So, for example, graph technology, or of course even cloud technologies, right, in order to augment capacity, but then increases complexity of the management of this new storage type, or some others as well, like sensor technology, as we mentioned, or blockchain technologies even, which brings the general ledger brings a lot of opportunities, which for me, I mean, I might be limited in my experience, but it was not really fully explored until now. What would be, according to you, the next gen tech tools that we should expect or that we need in order to perform custom analytics or product analytics or even process analytics? Just a couple of words, and we actually need to close the session as well. Please.
I would just say 2 words: open source. I think that's
Okay.
that's the way forward. You don't personalize the in-house solutions. Try to leverage open source, then make it your own. That would be my guess.
Very good. The beauty of open source, I just want to add this, is that unbelievably, it might turn to be more secure from the cybersecurity perspective compared to black box solutions, because you can always dig deeper into the open source code. But this is a very technical part, actually. Okay, good for open source. What else?
From my side, I think I would suggest that the solutions that move from information to insights. A vast majority of what we call analytics is still information. It's reports, dashboards that do not really help with insights. At the moment, insights is left to humans. Well, while we are continuing on our way to make ourselves obsolete, might as well get insights out of systems instead of depending on humans. And we are seeing some systems going that way. So yeah, I think that would be the next important transition for businesses to graduate from information to insights in terms of their technical systems.
So in God we trust, all the others should bring their data, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, thank you, Gaurav. Kaushik, do you have an end note to that?
No, I would go by what Gaurav and Candice said, because as far as I'm concerned, there are already too many technologies, and we don't know what to do with that. And my pet peeve on that, lack of standardization. You buy one technology, it doesn't work with something else. There is a version issue. There are so many moving parts. By the time you're done implementing one, something new has come in. So all those issues are there. So I don't want to predict what comes next.
Talking about prediction, we just received another question which says, is it easier to predict failed sales or successful sales? That's a very funny one, but I think it has an insight there. So is it easier to predict a failure in sales? It depends if your sales department is your enemy or friend, I would say. But besides that, so if you don't target to harm anyone, then is it easier to predict failure in sales or successful sales?
So I'm assuming it refers to B2C sales and not a B2B sales. In B2C sales, if we convert it into rate, success rate or failure rate, then what is easier to predict will be determined by which one is bigger. So if your success rate is bigger, it will be difficult to predict. If your failure rate is bigger, that will be difficult to predict. So if I'm converting say 60% or 70% of my customers, then there is no variation or no heterogeneity in the data for me to pick up. There are not enough signals that differentiate the good from the bad. Whereas if the success rate is 10% or 5%, then there are enough differentiators in the data for me to be able to predict that.
Right.
I hope I understood the question correctly.
I think that was the meaning. Yes, definitely. So we need definitely heterogeneity in the data, which comes back to the definition of big data. It was initially, and it still is actually described by 4 V's, being velocity, volume, veracity, and variety. So we actually had a question on that, saying, why do we need the 4 V's, in fact, if the heterogeneity is the single one characteristic we need?
That's not true, Alexandrina. I think there are, what we typically say, there are two kind of cases, values that can be derived out of data. One is what I call the macro decisions, and macro decisions are the ones which are taken by people, which is like all the managers, or even individuals, or or leadership, etc. people making decisions. Okay, you know, where to allocate budgets at a campaign level or a channel level, or where to, you know, which new experience do we want to create, etc. So macro decisions, you know, heterogeneity is good enough to come up with predictions. But there are what we call micro decisions, and micro decisions is whether you know, which product should we show to Alexandrina. Should we show you know, a mobile phone today, or a new dress, or should we show, you know, a toy? Like, depends on, and that cannot be derived from, you know, that's a micro decision. You know, the example even Kaushik you know, talked about recommender systems, right? It has to work at an individual level. So as long as you're just talking about only about macro decisions, yes, heterogeneity, and you know, you don't really need all the 4 V's. You can get insights out of distributions and, you know, sample data. But as long as you want to you know, make micro decisions, you would need you know, 4 V's to a reasonably good extent.
Fair enough. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add? Because we are reaching out our max time, after which I really don't know what happens. So maybe the platform expires. But just close. Okay, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure for me to be here with you. I really enjoyed the session. I hope you did too. In case you have any questions, please revert back to Kaushik, Gaurav, Candice, and myself, and to GIA organizers. I'm sure we will hear back again from DataHash and 173 Tech, as well as from HDFC Bank. Myself, I say hello to everyone. Thank you very much, and wish you a great evening and a great week.